Okay, Kelsey.
Yep, it's all yours.
All right, calling the meeting to order. Good morning. All right, it's Amber with us
Does not look like she's on yet.
because we don't have a quorum.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Correct.
if she's not on, we won't have a quorum.
She did email me this morning and say she was going to be joining by Zoom. So
Okay,
hopefully in the
yeah,
minute or two,
give her a couple minutes.
be able to see her pop on here. Oh, there she is.
Yay. Good morning, Amber.
Good morning.
All right, well, I have called the meeting to order at 9 a.m. Do I have a approval for the minutes of Tuesday, June 15, 2021?
I second the motion to approve the minutes.
Do you want to approve? And then do you want a second, Amber?
Yes, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Great. Any questions, any comments? No? Motion is moved and approved. All right, let's see, public comment. Do we have any public comments this morning?
We did not have any requests for public comment.
All right, thank you. So we move on to action items, please. All right.
So we have the utility.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's right, action items, here we go. We have one, it looks like. And this is David and Heather Pitzner. Do I have a motion to approve that? Or denied?
I have a motion to deny based on some of the language in the utility request itself. It says that credits will only be given for no impact on the sewer, but this was leaking into the toilet and, anything in the house that leaks has sewer impact, and looks like staff has also recommended that we deny, and then I agree with the staff.
Okay. Amber? Can you second that motion?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to have a little bit of discussion. Maybe this isn't the appropriate time, but in a minute about the form itself. I think we're going to get to that. Is that correct?
I think we'll get to that in the next meeting. We're gonna table that, so
Oh,
if
we
that's
are
okay
going
with
to.
you.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so the motion has been moved and approved. And it's done. Okay. Discussion and information items. Now it's your turn.
Ready?
It's your turn, yeah.
Let me flip flop something if we will. Well, I'll go ahead and do this first, and then we'll talk streets. I sent you guys an email highlighting the projects that we are going to be able to focus on this year. Some of these are real cash, some of these are predicated on loans. And what's in your packet as well is the budget, the actual budget sheet for both of these water and wastewater projects. And what I wanted to do is just kind of go down and explain to you which ones are cash, meaning that we can move forward on those right away. And the ones that are loans, meaning that I can't move forward until we know that those loans and or grants in some cases have been awarded to us. And even when they're awarded, there is a paperwork process that comes with that delays us for several months before we can actually pull the trigger. We don't actually get the money in our hands right away. So there's a little bit of a lag time. So I wanted you guys to be aware of that. So when we schedule projects, you kind of understand why we're scheduling them in the time frame that we schedule them, because it's all really hinged on those funds being in the city's hands. I'll go water first. Our meter module, obviously that's real cash. We have it in hand. We take drawdowns as we replace the modules. And we're about 70% complete with that project. That'll wrap up in October. So I'm probably at the end of October, that projects will complete and we'll put that to bed, okay? The reservoir, the tank site study, that's in movement right now. If you guys listened to the last council meeting, they gave us the nod to go ahead and move forward on the two locations that seem to be what flushed out of the assessment of what could possibly be another location if the current site is not conducive to building the new tank. And what I mean by that is our current concrete tank is located on a property that does not belong to us. It's owned by the conference center. And it is positioned underneath the transformer lines that Pacific Power has. So they're very sensitive to what we put out there, even around our public works yard, which is at the lower part of that transmission line when it comes to height. So if you think about the construction of a new tank, there's going to be all kinds of heavy equipment, cranes that are lifting and gyrating around, and they might not be real excited about that. So we are in the process of scheduling meetings with the conference center and Pacific Power to see how they feel about us trying to construct a new tank there. The site has been vetted by the engineering company. They feel that it's a very good site to consider building a new tank behind the one that exists today. And then the city would talk about if they abandon the existing tank or if they keep it as some sort of secondary tank. The second location is out off the 101, and it's property that belongs to ODOT. So again, the engineering company looked at, our firm looked at the entire community, and what they were looking for is property that would give us the same elevation or better than what we have now for our tank, because that's a requirement of building a reservoir. And so they didn't focus on who owned the property as much as what choices do we have in the community as a whole to put this tank if we can't do it where it exists today. Okay, so that second piece of property ended up being ODOT's property, and we'll move forward on that discussion once we've had the discussion with Pacific Power and the conference center to see what the current location gives us. If that ends up being a no-go, that those two parties are not willing to let the city build a replacement tank, then we would go to the secondary location and see what we could do with that. So that's the plan on the site study. The engineering for the water resiliency, that's real cash. And so what that is for us to be able to get the lines that would come from the springs, the tank, the plant down to the RV park for our distribution for water to the city if we had an event, get that engineered so that we're looking at what the exact cost of that project would be. We had it pre-engineered. We got a rough estimate to be able to go to the budget committee and talk to the council about what we would be looking at. But until it is really engineered, you can't dial that number in really tight. A pre-engineer gives you a pretty accurate number. But again, until it's completely engineered, you can't put all your bets on that number. Okay, so that work will happen. As you saw in the email I sent out to you, we were awarded the $568,000 for that resiliency project. That's the 3 seismic valves on each of the tanks. That's all the piping that goes along with it. And so we'll be able to move forward on that. Okay, that was our 1% 30-year, 50% forgiveness. So we asked for 568. We only have to pay back half of that. So 288,000 the city pays back. So that was a great victory for the city. That's going to be about all the water team could do this year. That's a plate full plus some. And then lastly, the phase 1 of the lines down to the RV park that I mentioned would be the next loan that we would push and pursue. Because right now, when you put your loans in, there's kind of a pecking order, if you will, of how these things are submitted. And so now that we have the 586, the next loan would be the one to get the lines down to the RV park. Okay. So we will move on that. A lot of things are predicated on that, such as our ability to pay that back. So part of the loan application is for us to be able to define that. I think we have a preliminary way to do that. And so we would move forward in pursuing the funds for that. Okay. And all these projects that I'm talking about, I think I sent you guys sometime back, the presentation that I did to council back in February or March that outlines all these projects. So if you guys don't have that, you can find it on the city's website, or I can just send you that presentation again that kind of outlines the focus and of the pace of which we're wanting to do these things. And so I always have that handy because it takes a long time to actually put the plan together and then see money in your hands. It may be a year or two later that we actually see the cash. So it's easy to kind of forget the plan that was behind this. So if you guys want that presentation, just tell me, I can shoot it off to the team again. Questions on the water projects? Okay.
I'm impressed that you're able to get the funds that you have, and it sounds like a lot of work. You guys
I'll tell you that
really appreciate it.
the credit goes to the administrative staff because it's like, you know, we come up with the plan and the idea, and then these gals have to do all the paperwork behind that. Where Trevor and I come in as we put the scope of the project together, we give them all the technical aspects of what's going to happen with this money, but then the admins have to fill it all out. They have to chase those milestones. They take the questions that come back and forth between the feds and the state. And I laugh and tell people it's like birthing a child because it takes a minimum of 9 months. Most of the time it's 12 to 14. And Kelsey and Jen have been the ones doing this. And Kelsey's learning and she's taking the ball and carrying it now that Jen is our recorder. But I can tell you there were some stressful times when Jen was doing this because we were learning. We had never done these applications before. And she just did a killer job. So it's like I hail to thee because they're doing this on top of everything else they're doing. And if you miss a milestone, you start over because they have an increment of which these things have to happen. If you miss that, it's like too bad getting the end of the line kind of a thing. You know, you miss the opportunity that's open for the intervals during that window of time. It's quite tedious. It's like a mortgage on steroids. I'm not kidding.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks you guys for recognizing that. I think they do a great job. Okay, wastewater. So we got our loan about 18 months ago for the cover on Matanuska. And so we are a year and some months into that. That money has to be spent within a 2-year timeframe. So that cover is going to go over Matanuska this year. We're finalizing the paperwork on that, of which the state has to review because they gave us the money for that. And they just make sure that our bid documents are in order, that we're offering that opportunity to all of our local workers as well as beyond. And once they kiss and bless that, that'll go out to bid. We were hoping to time the cover when we replaced the generator because we were concerned we wouldn't have enough room to do that work in there, replacing that generator before we got the cover on it. We might not have that luxury. So we worked with the engineering firm and the architect that did that cover design, and they feel that there's not going to be a problem with us being able to do the generator work if the cover is on there before the generator arrives. We've ordered the generator, but like everything else in the supply chain right now, the lead times are unbelievable. So we probably won't see that generator for close to 5 months. And most likely the cover will be on Matanuska by that time. So again, it's a chicken and an egg and the pecking order of all these balls we have in the air. But the Matanuska pump station will have a new cover on it this year. And that's real cash. That's money that's been awarded to us. The generator, like I say, has been ordered already. We have the money to pay for that. The Siuslaw and Midway pump stations, those are predicated on funding, and it's kind of 2 types of funding. The generator funding we're chasing is through FEMA, and there's 4 generators, including the Midway and Siuslaw. Ecola and Maine are the other 2. That's one application asking for 4 generators. We don't know if we're going to get those generators. And so the other piece part to that project, Midway and Siuslaw, is to add on to those pump stations and put those generators in there. They're permanent generators. So we wouldn't have to be rolling generators out every time we have a crisis, whether it's a power outage, a storm coming, whatever. It's a master plan project, but 2 different types of funding we'd be chasing. The FEMA covers the generators, the federal funding, the infrastructure loans would be to add on to those pump stations to house those generators. And so again, it's going to be a little bit of a timing chicken and an egg thing. And of course, the electronics that come along with that to get that generator put in there. So that's completely predicated on funding and the FEMA grant. So I don't know where we are. The gal that helped us with the FEMA grant, Civil West, helped us with get the initial paperwork going. Great conversation with her, Civil West and I, and she said these are the projects that they like to fund because they support major infrastructure. It's emergency preparedness, and they're all about that. So I feel hopeful that we'll get those 4 generators. And then it's a matter of just getting the funding to add on to those pump stations so that we have those there. So I think that I'm hopeful that'll be a project that we get to do in the future. And the same with the Ecola and Maine generators. Those locations have generators now that are failing. And so Maine often does not start when we try to start the generator to do its regular maintenance run. So we've just been limping and kissing it along until we can get it replaced. And at Ecola, it's a very old military generator. It's huge. And it's been giving us a lot of trouble for the last 2 years. We have a lot of what we call ghost failures that we can't isolate what's causing the failure. And so the generator company that comes out, helps us maintain all of our generators, has told us for now 2-3 years that it's time to replace that generator. And until this year, we had nothing to back up those generators. So we now have plugs that we installed, Cannon Beach Electric installed, that we can take another mobile generator and plug into those locations so that if those generators completely fail, we've got something to plug in there. But because we only have a limited number of mobile generators, we're moving them back and forth between pump stations. So you can kind of see the importance of these projects. The last project for wastewater is the Haystack Pump Station. We're in the process of getting the paperwork ready to put that out to bid as well. That will happen this year. So our 2 big major priorities are Haystack and Matanuska pump stations for wastewater. Haystack's a little dicey because of its location. It's on private property. Because of flow levels or certain types of year that we would want to do this and others that we would not want to do this. And so we're shooting for late September, early October as the time frame. So if we can get the paperwork ready and get it out to bid, we'll see if we can accomplish that. That's when the flow levels are ideal. We're not in the summer. It's on Pacific Street, very congested. Like I say, being on private property, it makes it difficult. There's a new owner of that home. It sold last year and they're in the middle of remodeling. So we're trying to coordinate with the contractor. As soon as he's done, we can scoot right in and do our thing. So we've got a lot of balls for juggling, but it's all good stuff because we're actually getting things done that we've wanted to get done for a long time. So the team's pretty pumped about it.
It's incredible. Thank you.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun. That's right. No pun intended. So, yeah. So there you go. That is the water and wastewater projects. And yeah, I'm really proud of what the team's done. I think we have our priorities in order. And I think we've done a great job getting the funding all put together for this. And I really am appreciative of council and the budget committee for recognizing the needs and the support that Bruce gave us in getting the focus on this. there's a couple of these locations that we're playing a little bit of a Russian roulette, and it will be a total relief. I know that Mike and Daniel, as the leads of water and wastewater, will sleep a lot better at night because their phones go off when these alarms go off, and they get up in the middle of the night and they have to go address these things. So, and I know the same for Trevor. It will be a lot less stressful. So I'll be very anxious to see these projects come to be.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you. You guys have a great team. Thank you, Bruce. You have a great team. I don't think we recognize that enough, and we question you guys a lot of times.
Okay.
And we tell you how to do your job, but I wanted you to know that I so much appreciate, because I know your knowledge and everything that you do is for the good of all of us. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks. We appreciate that very much, Janae. And it's okay to question us,
It's okay. We do.
Believe me, we rethink all this stuff 1,000 times. So when you guys question us, that's all right. We look at each other and kind of chuckle because we question ourselves, making sure that when we go to council and the budget committee, that we're giving them the best that we can possibly give them about what is the crisis, And sometimes people will ask me, why are you doing a priority 3 project instead of a priority 1 project? If we're lucky enough to get grant money come our way for a project that's a priority 3, I'm going to take that. I mean, especially if it's grant money, that's just free money for the city. There's no reason why we shouldn't say, thank you, Sam, I'll take another. And so you'll see some of that kind of out of order, if you will, as far as our master plan. But when it comes to funding, I don't think we should pass an opportunity when it comes to money coming our way.
And again, that's the reason why I appreciate everything. You have told us that several times. So I think as a committee, we should actually listen to you because I hear that loud and clear. And I just want to make sure that all of us remember that when we're questioning those things. So definitely, thank you.
I think all of us have a responsibility to spend the budget that we have the most efficient way we can possibly do it and stretch those dollars out as far as we possibly can, hit as many nails on the head as we possibly can in each given year. And, there's a fun aspect of that to me. It's a challenge, and I like to be able to kind of feel the victory for the team, especially when the guys say, we've been wanting to do this for so long. And when they finally get to do it and I see the exuberance that gives them, makes me feel good, so. It's the little things that float our boats, So that's the public works status on projects. As far as roads, you'll see the guys' activity in town right now. They're getting ready to prep Harrison and the cul-de-sacs over by the RV park to get those ready for an overlay. There's some infrastructure work that has to be done on Harrison. There's a water meter that's almost in the middle of the street. We're going to try to get that over to the right of way. So you'll see some of that activity happening, that the paving overlay jobs that we have on the docket are starting to take form. So you'll see that. Okay. And I think that's it for that.
Good.
No, I'm fine. Very comprehensive, Karen, thanks.
Strict condition review process. So that's.
Let's talk about the conditions, because I think I can take that off your plate. During Jeff's TSP, the transportation study, there's a gentleman on the team that talked about a software that he has. It works with a drone process. What he does is he flies this drone through the city, and it will assess all of your paved streets. It'll assess the depth of your thickness of your asphalt. It'll tell you how bad your spidering is. It'll recognize any sinkholes, potholes. It does it all. And for an annual fee, they will do this, come through and fly. Doesn't do anything with gravel, just paved. Only half of our town is paved. And I mentioned to him that I've been trying to find a way to mechanize how we keep track of our streets, because as you know, it's a spreadsheet that Cruz Flores had for 30 years that he was here, and that I have kept that spreadsheet going. And so what he's going to do is put together some pricing for me of what that would be annually for them to fly that drone through, assess our streets and give us a comprehensive report that's mechanized. And so I'd like to just take a pause on this and let's see if there's, this process will ease kind of the burden of this. What I like about this is it gives us one look at all of our streets instead of multiple people looking at it with different perspectives. I think there's a greater accuracy that comes with this and certainly less burdensome for us to keep track of every year. So if you're okay with that, I'd like to just kind of table this and then I'll come back with you guys of what his cost would be to do the drone process and see what you guys think about that.
This is very exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's great.
I agree.
It reminds me of, I don't know how many of you have met Matt Verley. He's a phenomenal guy. He's a fire chief out in Hamlin. And he has a drone business that flies in all the forestry areas and it counts the trees. It tells you what type of tree it is. It tells you the condition of it. It tells you just about everything you want to know about a tree. And so this guy's software behind this pavement drone, if you will, is very similar to the drones that fly through the forestry and assess the trees for landowners. And so I just said, I'm sold, I'm in.
Yes.
You know, tell me what this is going to cost me.
Having one, like you said, just one,
Yeah.
one instead of all of us, because we all have different ideas on what it should look like.
Yeah. And then the other thing is I got with ODOT to see if they also have a grant program. And I asked them if this would fall under qualification for their grants for some of their street improvement money that they give out each year. And he's going to get back and he said, I've never heard of it. And I said, it's out there and they're using it in a lot of the bigger cities. And I'd love to try that. I said, would you consider us as a beta test for this? Would you give us some grant money? He said, what's the cost? And I said, I'm waiting for them to come back, give me a cost. He said, just call me when you have that. So maybe we'll get some grant money for that.
That's great.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot more standardized and consistent
Yeah.
to have something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I got to thinking, as much as I'm grateful for the help, it's
Really walking the streets.
it's hard for me to kind of explain to you guys from an ODOT perspective, how to assess a street. And so I think this would be great.
Exciting.
All right, we'll table that then.
Thank you. All right, so we move to the good of the order.
Well, I mentioned a little earlier about the concerns some of my neighbors and friends have had that know that I'm on the Public Works Committee about the trimming that's going on some of the narrower and more quaint streets in the city. And their question was simply to what a value there is in doing some of the trimming in the streets. They understand that there's safety in not having blind corners, but what seems to be happening is that the streets are trimmed entirely up and down, and then that gives places for more of the tourists and non-residents to park. When they park on any of that foliage that's now dying, then there's a fire hazard. Plus, when they park on the sides of the street, then it forces everybody else into the center of the street, which becomes a safety issue. The wider streets also become a safety issue because people are seems to be going faster on the wider streets, and traffic surveys have shown the wider the street, the more potential there is for speeding on that. So I just wondered about assessing the trimming project and maybe limiting that to areas where safety is an issue and it increases safety rather than decreases safety because of the fire and because of the pedestrian and cyclist activity that's forced into the center of the street.
So one thing I'd like to ask everybody is if they have not done so, please go online and take the transportation study survey.
Yeah.
There's several different categories that Jeff has set up relative to parking versus congestion and so on. This would probably fall most under the parking, because the city clears our right of way for multiple reasons, not just to provide extra parking. It is for pedestrian safety so that they can walk off the asphalt and out of the lane of traffic so people can actually walk safely on the side of the road. Whenever we have construction happening in town, the contractors have to have a place to park and pull their trucks off the roadway. Otherwise, we have areas that have to be coned off and the streets are partially blocked, and that's never a good thing. Whenever we have emergency services, they have to have a place to pull over and to be able to aid people no matter what it is. Delivery services, we often get calls from FedEx, UPS, or any other types of delivery services. Some people get the dairy products delivered to them from a company up in Astoria. They've called and talked about the brush along the side of the road. They have no way to be able to pull over and then get their products out of the passenger side of their van. They've got to do it on the roadside because the Escalonians have grown so much out into the pavement area. So there's multiple reasons we clear our right of ways. We have to be able to see our infrastructure. All of our water meters are in the right of way. So the guys have to be able to work when they're doing normal routine maintenance. The fire department has to be able to see their hookup points. Many of those are in the right of way as well as the hydrants are. So the need to clear the right of ways and keep them open is vast. It's not just about creating parking. Obviously, blind intersections, that's a given, and that's probably one of our most problematic. But it is a responsibility of the city to have those right-of-ways cleared.
Yeah, I don't believe any of those points are relevant on the streets that I'm thinking of. There's, people can pull over enough, and there have been safety vehicles and Civic Power and so forth. They've been trimming trees lately, and they were fine with, I think, the amount of space that they had. Yes, but.
Well, let's do this, Steve. Why don't you
And they-
provide me a list of streets that you're referring to so that we can take another look at what we're doing there and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. If you feel it needs to be reevaluated, I'm happy to do that. I'm talking about the town as a whole. That's our practice.
Yeah, see, the thing is, I only get feedback from people that, know me and neighbors of mine. So it may be that everything else is just fine, how you,
Okay.
it's kind of like pickles in a jar, that they all rise to the top. But really, there's a lot more to it than there is. And they're just picking the stuff off the top, maybe that was a bad analogy, but anyway, I'm not sure that it's an issue anywhere except for a few streets.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
let me,
streets you're talking about, and let me go out and take a look at it.
and then the consistency of allowing parking. Some streets are very wide and don't allow any parking. Some streets are narrow and there's parking available on both sides. And, when you allow that parking on the sides of the street, though, I understand clearing for pedestrians and cyclists maybe, but it's not mowed down to the point where it's easy to walk on or ride a bicycle on. But it does create the parking so that when you park on the sides, then everybody's forced into the center of the street. The cyclists and the dog walkers and so forth, and the regular traffic that goes through there. So I think that creates more of a hazard than it does a help.
And I think that issue, Steve, would go under Jeff's transportation plan. It wouldn't be something that we'd move to make a change on it right now until that consultant firm has done the full transportation study. But that's a really good example of what Jeff needs the feedback on relative to the narrow streets and the conditions of those.
Okay. Yeah, I've spoken with Jeff a couple of times. He's my neighbor around the corner, and also filled out the transportation survey, and I've sent it out to other residents, property owners, and
That's great.
for their input.
Okay.
And yeah, there are 4 different segments on that. So whatever your status is as a resident or a visitor or a delivery driver or comments.
And your point's really well taken. This is why in the presidential's one side of the street is no parking and the other side it's allowed. to kind of address some of those things. Then you get into the debate of which side should be not, you're never going to make everybody happy.
An alter.
I get what you're saying. And I think that Spruce is one of those streets that we have struggled with the most, because from all the way up at Hills, Ross, if you will, clear down to downtown where Little Pompeii and the US Bank building, all that along there, especially where you're going up by the cell towers. We had looked at trying to put a sidewalk on the east side of the street, but with the wetlands, we were not able to put a sidewalk there to get people off the pavement, because that's so dangerous there, and address some of the no parking to get cars out of the way so people aren't forced to walk in the middle of the street. So I get what you're saying. And those are all things that we brought up to the consultant that's working with Jeff on this project and said, we got to figure this out. There has to be a better way to deal with this. So your concerns are well noted. And I think that that's the forum to put them. And then let's see what shakes out of that. But as far as those particular streets and the vegetation management, the right of way, please get those to me and let me just take a look at what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And for anybody who's curious, the parking survey is open through the 25th. So just a couple more days to fill that out. And it's cannonbeachtsp.com.
Yeah.
Can I inject something here, just kind of on the same thread, about the streets and about the trimming? Is there a way, I'm a cyclist here, and is there a way to kind of send an alert to somebody when, like, for example, on Hemlock or going down the S curves, something's particularly overgrown and really dangerous? And I know it's the time of year, everything's growing out of control, but going, like, for me, I was climbing up the S curves last night and all the blackberries are out of control, which pushes me into the middle of the street because that shoulder is already, pretty small. And so is there a way for us, like, I don't know, Trevor or Karen, if you guys have a form that people should fill out to just let you guys know what particular areas are overgrowing and encroaching?
Yeah, please do. Just so you guys know, on our S curves, and I say both of them because there's kind of an upper and a lower S curves.
Yeah.
Some of those homeowners' property comes almost out to the asphalt. And so they've been very passionate about us not touching that vegetation. Therein lies the challenge that Jeff and I communicated to this consultant, is because especially on the S curves where it's very dangerous and we have people walking, because there's not really an alternative route unless you're just going to walk down at the ocean front.
Right.
And you're not going to do that when the tide is in.
Right.
So there's got to be a safe pedestrian walkway, and it's very narrow on the S curves. So there are a couple of properties on the S curves where the property line is in debate. There are 3 separate surveys on record, and they're all different. And so I'm going to assume I know where you're talking about, Amber, but I'd really appreciate an email. Send me an email and tell me that. So I've got something from a resident saying this is of concern, because that helps me in this discussion. And Jeff and I are reviewing that to see what I can do to tuck that back a little bit more and strike a balance of this homeowner and the city safety.
Okay. And then I guess there's kind of something related to roads, but not, I think that the drone situation, which I think is great for capturing more uniformity in terms of data collection. But what I noticed this weekend too, while I was driving, was on Ecola Park. At the, I would say, most southern, when you first turn on to Ecola Park, I noticed 2 things. One, it seems like we have and I don't know if that's Cannon Beach that's responsible or if it's the state parks that are responsible, but I thought that we used to have a sign that said that trailers and campers were not permitted on Ecola Park Road. But I don't know if anybody else noticed, but we had a surplus of trailers and campers going up that road all weekend, and it was especially dangerous. And the other thing that I noticed, that kind of right as you turn that corner and you're going up Ecola Park Road, there's a huge, like where the road has fallen away, and if you're going into Ecola Park and there's a trailer coming the opposite way, you can't both fit on the road. And because there is this piece of the road that has fallen out on the right side. And so I don't know who's responsible for that repair, but that makes it particular because there's no shoulder there at all, as everybody knows. And so I don't know who to, send that feedback to, but there is a chunk of road that has recently fallen off.
Yes. Okay, let me address a couple of those things. ODOT has been in touch.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So I don't know if you guys are aware, but I ranger up there at Ecola Park. So we have had some, if I can address the trailer issue
Sure.
first. We have had some problems with trailers. There's still a sign down at the very bottom that says trailers not recommended. We're going to change that signage to say no trailers, no RVs, passenger vehicles only.
Wonderful.
So I don't know if you've been up at the road between Nicola Point and Indian Beach lately, but there's a 45-foot Class A off the side that
Yeah.
Brought it out yesterday.
we've had 3 different tow trucks, 2 from Portland, 1 from Tillamook, the largest that they've had, come out and take a look at it and say they can't touch it. So we've got a rotator tow truck, which has got a rotating crane on the back that's going to attempt soon, when we can get it out there, to get that RV out of there. And that's really prompted a lot of people to voice the concerns that you have, and other people have voiced them before, but I think that the management out of Nehalem is now listening to that.
Good.
The issues that we've had. We had in that area 3 different, right there where that RV is off, 3 different incidents within 10 days. One was a small school bus. The other one was like a F-350, one of the larger passenger trucks. And then this RV, and we've had other close calls, near miss incidents that have also been brought to the attention of the Nehalem management unit. So we are working on signage. We're going to have a lot more signage. We're recreation based and hate to bring down these ordinances on everybody, but you're right. It's totally time that we address that, and that is being taken care of.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So hopefully, that happens very soon, and I'm totally on board with you. And I think that all the management unit in Nehalem is now too. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great update. So I guess it's just the one piece about the road that's just more sketchy now because
I
there's
think that's ODOT's, and I think Karen was going to address that.
yeah.
So just to bring you up to date a little bit more, the RV was removed yesterday successfully. So that's
Good.
done. Ben Cox did reach out to me, and he wants to meet to talk about where they can place those signs. Because as you know, just because you put a sign up doesn't mean people see it and read it. And then secondly, if they miss it, where can they turn around? So he's going to talk about the proposed turnarounds that they're going to create on Ecola Park Road. So if people ignore the signs that are put up, how they can get them turned around before they go too far up on the road and there is no opportunity to turn around. So that's supposed to happen next week, and I'll let you guys know how that comes out. The responsibility of Ecola Park Road is a very complex one. I'm going to say that as a general rule of thumb, it is an ODOT responsibility. They work with state parks and they work with the city. There is a section of Ecola Park Road, very small, that is down low towards Fifth Street, that the city takes care of. Once you get past about Eric Meyer's house, it becomes the ODOT's responsibility. But that road is split. Half of it is Ecola Park Road and half of it is actually Spruce. Part of that is the county's responsibility. So there's multiple owners that come into play, and that's why all of us work really closely together, depending on what the issue is. If it's minor, and I mean minor, like a little pothole or something that my team could put some coal mix in quickly to solve a problem, I have permission to do so. If it's something like a separation of the pavement in that slide area where the road is moving, it's hands off for the city, because that's far more budget money than what I'm authorized to spend in someone else's property. And so ODOT deals with that typically.
That makes sense.
So it is kind of confusing. If I could show you a map, it'd be a little bit easier for you guys to grasp it. But it really splits hairs as you go further up the Ecola Park Road, whether we're talking county, ODOT.
This
state
is just at
park.
the base, Karen. This is just literally, as soon as you turn on to Ecola Park Road, it's probably 100 feet from the corner.
Yeah, and down in that area is wetlands. So
Yeah.
again, we have to be careful of any ground disturbance, or if we're going to try to go patch blacktop, we have to work with Jeff and get all of our wetland requirements in order before we
Yeah.
do anything. So it's complicated. I tell people that all the time. Ecola Park Road is a complicated area for us to have to manage, but
Yeah.
we'll get out there and take a look at that. We
Yeah.
did get some feedback about the trimming that was done on Ecola Park Road. That was done by ODOT, not the city. They notified us that trimming was going to be done. They did a brush hogger to start with, and then they went back and did some hand pruning to kind of clean it up, because when you use a brush hogger, it just looks like something was ripped. And so they went back and they cleaned that up. But if there's additional feedback relative to that, either contact ODOT or you can send it to me and I'm happy to pass it forward to them. They work really well with the city. It's a really good group of guys, and so are the folks at State Parks. And Ben Cox and them are trying to solve the RV camper large rig issue going up that road.
So just on that, Karen, that's super helpful. On the, just in terms of, I don't know if this has already been put in, but is that up to Oregon? And maybe Steve, you know the answer to this, but in terms of enforcement of trailers and campers and RVs and larger than passenger cars, what about, what if we had some sort of, weight is something that you'd run over that would tell the weight, which would just discern between a passenger car and an RV as a means of enforcement. And then you get an automatic ticket if you're caught, as a way of, because I think the turnaround idea sounds just sounds outrageous.
There are road strips that you can put in that tell you the weight of a vehicle that crosses it. But again, that would have to be an ODOT effort. The city wouldn't be able to do something like that. It wouldn't be within our purview to do that.
No.
And then you have to ask yourself, once you put the strip down, somebody goes over it, who's enforcing it? Because we don't have an officer that's just sitting up there patrolling that. Now, I guess it could trigger somebody at the ranger station.
Right.
But who's responding to that? You know what I mean? So it's a great idea, but then you have to kind of follow it through and say, if I execute this, how do I bring it full circle and make sure that somebody's enforcing it?
Oh yeah, of course. I'm just, yeah.
And whether we monitor size or whether we monitor weight, trying to get somebody, as Karen said, to respond immediately to keep them from going up there, or, give them a ticket. If they're getting a ticket and they're already up there, then really.
Yeah. That's why ODOT's trying to make a turnaround, because, as you get further up and they put the additional signage, if you're going to miss 4 or 5 signs along the way, you probably shouldn't be behind the wheel of a car. And so they want to have that last shot opportunity for them to turn around. And it's going to be somewhere just beyond 8th Street. And so again, they're in control of that. They just wanted us to come out and take a look at it and weigh in on it, tell them based on our experience what we thought would be best. So we're hoping that addresses it.
They've already got some flags and stakes up there where they are proposing the turnaround is going to be. So if you're up on Ecola Park Road and you see those 2 stakes on the west side of the road up there, just where it Y's off and it goes up, just to the left of that, if you're traveling north, and you'll see those 2 3-foot stakes with the tape on them, and that's what we're proposing the turnaround.
Oh, interesting. Wouldn't it just be cheaper to close Ecola Park Road to traffic entirely than to recreate? We have to, I don't know, this is not for us here in Public Works, but it blows my mind how much money that gets spent maintaining that road when really the safest thing would be to close it to traffic.
I actually looked at that year before last, Amber, and because there is another entrance into the park off of Highway 101, as you know.
Right.
But the cost of making that a proper pull in and pull out into the park was just cost prohibitive for the park to be able to do that. That was their desire, is to have all the trailers and stuff come in at that location and just vehicle traffic at Ecola Park Road, or potentially make Ecola Park Road pedestrian traffic. But because people live up there, they still have to drive their cars to their homes. So they wanted to limit what was on Ecola Park Road and then have folks come in off the highway. But you'd have to create a turning lane and all the stuff that we have to create to build something up at Southwind. And
Right.
you're talking well over $1 million to put something like that in.
Yeah.
And so they just had to put a hold on it. So unless they were to get some sort of federal funding that would support that, I think it'd be a difficult problem for them to solve.
Yeah, no, I agree that I think that it's more like the weighing out of, the liability of things like this happening versus the cost of changing it before it does.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, complicated. Anyway, thank you for just allowing me to voice those things.
Welcome.
Thank you, yes. Anything else for the good of the order? Not, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn meeting.
To adjourn.
You guys have a great week.
You too. Thank you.